Hey, virtual students, we're here with Unit 4, Part 3, and we're going to fill out this unemployment column here. And let's get started. Okay, starting out here with a daily blog. Go ahead, take a second, get it answered. Okay, so to figure this out, all right, before you answered, I didn't tell you that to be considered unemployed, you have to be actively looking for a job. And so that's how we're going to determine, help us. That's going to help us determine eventually how to figure out this unemployment rate. Um, so let's go ahead and identify who is looking for a job and unemployed. Stay at home mom, not looking, right? Retired, not looking. This guy had a job, didn't work very much, but he is employed. Father 3 applied, waiting to hear back, is unemployed as of right now. I won't cross him off. Part E, not saying he's looking for a job. He should be maybe, but he's not looking for a job. Second grade student is not. Part G, same as kind of Part E. Depends. He could claim to be unemployed if he's looking for a job, but we didn't mention that. Teacher during the summer, again, depends if they're looking for a job, but we didn't mention that. Former factory worker who's injured, can't work, not looking for a job. And then the last one is letter J, a mom who looked for work for 3 weeks but gave up. If I give up, I'm not looking. So this person would be off the list as well. Okay, so that idea of actively looking for a job is super important as we kind of try to define this unemployment stuff. Hopefully you shared your opinion on should the government take care of unemployed people, kind of a controversial, not controversial, but a topic that people have an opinion about, um, and kind of everywhere in between. So anyway, interested to hear what you said about those. Here's our special terms. I can be defined in one of three ways. I can be employed, right? That means I work for 1 hour. It's pretty simple. I can be unemployed. Like we said, here's the key. I've got to actively look for a job. And then the people that aren't working or don't want to work, right? They're considered not in the labor force. Okay, so we just take them completely out of the equation. We don't worry about those people. Okay, so again, those are people not looking for jobs. Historically, our unemployment rate, here's a little screenshot of the graph. You can see we know already, we looked at it before from, I think, part one, and unemployment goes up when we have recessions. Okay, and when people are unemployed, they don't buy stuff, and that's a challenging thing for an economy. All right, so how's it figured? Here's our equation. All right, I would probably write this stuff in your box because it's tough to type these fractions in there. Okay, so we're going to take the unemployed people divided by the labor force. Okay, and our labor force equals our unemployed plus employed. Okay, so keep that in mind as we're doing this. We're going to do some practice problems here in a second. Why is it important? It shows us obviously kind of how efficient our economy is. If unemployment's going up, obviously, that means people aren't finding the jobs that would pay them an income. And overall, from an economic production standpoint, if a lot of people are unemployed, standing around, we're wasting resources to produce stuff. Okay, if the idea of a successful economy is producing as much as possible, may or may not be the case, but we're obviously wasting resources if people don't or are unable to work. Okay, so here's your first daily blog here. Go ahead and take a shot. Use that formula that we just talked about. All right, so just as a reminder, we've got our formula here as unemployed divided by labor force. Okay, and I didn't get too tricky here, and I gave you the number of the people in the labor force. So that's going to be 35,000, right? And our unemployed is 4,000. I'm not trying to trick you. Now that leaves us, but I do give you this population. That means 15,000 people are out of the labor force, right? And so, that's those are numbers like if you were to, be asked that, like, well, there's some people that just don't count. Go ahead and do the math. You multiply it by 100 here, and you're going to should get 11.4%. Okay. Now let's say that the economy is doing bad. Okay, and these unemployed people as we mentioned before, become discouraged. They give up. Okay. And so let's say that 1,000 of those people gave up. Now we have the same economy here. Notice our numbers change. So our unemployed now equals 3,000. Our employed, we don't need that number, but our labor force now equals 34,000. Changes fractions. Like we said, well, these people gave up. They don't want to even try to work anymore. So let's see what that does to our unemployment rate. You should get it to multiply by 100. You should get it to 8.8%. Okay, so you just said the economy got worse, people gave up, but our unemployment rate gets better than the previous situation. Okay, so it's not a perfect indicator of the health of an economy. There are some misrepresentations in certain situations. Now let's flip it. Let's say that the economy is doing awesome. We got 1,000 people. So from our original problem here, okay, we've got 1,000 more people decided like, hey, listen, my friends are making some money. I'm going to go try to find a job. Okay. And so now we've got 5,000 people unemployed because they decided to go find a job. So and we have 36,000 in the labor force. So we've got unemployed 5,000 over our labor force 36,000. Like we just said, the economy is doing awesome. We got more people in it. Like we want to go find some jobs. You multiply this by 100 here, you should end up with 13.8%. Okay. So again, it's not a perfect statistic. It can hide some details. Your job is to eventually be able to analyze, like, okay, what is it hiding from me? You know, what do these statistics tell me? All right, so what causes is at the end of the day, it's going to be some type of a lower demand for products. That might mean making less money. That might mean not wanting to buy certain things. And we also know that companies will have to potentially decrease how many people they hire if they have to pay them too much, or they can't necessarily stay in business because the cost of production in other ways is going to be increased. Um, but again, at the end of the day, it's going to be some type of a lower demand for a product where people stop buying stuff. When COVID started, we stopped buying stuff because the government made businesses basically close, right? And so, whether or not that was obviously people were unable to buy stuff, we had some unemployment spike up for luckily, really just kind of a short period of time during that. As we've mentioned, why it's not perfect. We've mentioned these discouraged workers. All right. We also know that when the economy is not doing well, sometimes companies won't completely lay people off, but they will, cut their hours. Okay, so they won't send them home completely, but they will cut their hours, and obviously that makes a lower income for those people. Well, they're still counted as an employed person, so it misses some of that. Can't keep track of informal jobs, illegal jobs. That isn't necessarily a super, I don't think, mess up of the statistic. All right, so why it's bad? Couple things. We talked about why the government or should the government pay for, distribute money to unemployed people. Well, number one, people are not buying stuff if I'm unemployed. Number two, we're not paying taxes. That's a double negative for the government, right? So they're not collecting tax money from the person that's not working, and they are also paying for that person to um, get better, right? Or I'm sorry, paying for that person to be unemployed. Okay, so um, anyway, those are the challenges. That's why it's not. That's why it is challenging. Somewhere between this 4 and 6% historically has been pretty good. Sometimes it gets a little bit below 4%. Over 6% would be considered pretty a pretty alarming statistic. And so anyway, those are the stats. We'll talk soon. Email with questions.